which one should I use? It's always a tough choice. This always looks better, but this is more effective. Oh, sorry. Good morning. Well, today's news is off to an interesting start. Let's take a look at it. So, here we go. Doge is reporting that it's a possibility you could get a tax rebate. Well, sort of a tax rebate, a Doge rebate. If they were to get $2 trillion, according to Daily Mail, it's likely that each individual taxpayer would be able to get, or each taxpaying household, that's different than taxpayer, would get about $5,000. Now, I don't think Trump and Musk are going to be able to find $2 trillion they can legally cut from the government. That's an awful lot. So that's probably not going to happen. But a more reasonable number, which Daily Mail reports as well, is if they cut $500 billion, which is not too bad. They're already about 10 to 20% of the way there. So that's not too bad. The checks would be around $1,250. That's still some money. I mean, of course, the Daily Mail here makes it seem like it's not a big deal, but I mean, that's still, gosh, $1,200 is a lot of money for me. I don't know about you. So, would that be a effective use of the money? That's the real question. Should the federal government even do that? The goal here is to actually save money, and by getting rid of all this, is it really gonna, and then giving it back to the taxpayer, which is where the money is from, so it is the correct thing to do, at least morally, but is it the right use of the money? That's the real question. The deficit's really high. $500 billion to cut the deficit, that's a good idea. I don't know. If I was in the president's shoes and I was able to cut $500 billion, remember that's $1 billion every year, or $500 billion every year. Like, this is not just, this is one time and this is never, this is next year's budget. Is it going to have these things? So the next year's budget could be balanced or have a surplus, which would be amazing. We haven't had a surplus in 20 years. No, 26 years. It was back when Clinton was president. So that would be amazing. I would say take half the money, write a check to everybody and say, hey, look, we're going to use the other half to pay down the deficit, but you guys should get a cut of this because it's your money. I think that'd be a fair thing to do. A very fair thing to do. Now, there's a big debate among economists as to whether or not tax rebates even help as far as economically, which is a good question. Would they help the economy in any way? Would it cause things to grow? There's a lot of debate on it. It depends on who you ask and who's giving the tax rebate. If Biden or Obama give it out, then of course it's going to help according to the mainstream. If it's Trump or Bush, no, it's not. Now, to be fair, both Biden and Trump during their presidencies did issue tax checks pretty much to average Americans. Now, did that help you? I got a check from the government a long time ago. Gosh, it's 5 years ago now, I think, during the pandemic. And, helped me out. But did it really spur on economic growth and keep the country from collapsing? Not really. I don't think that actually happened. Now, of course, I'm not pulling out the data here to prove it. But this is a common thread. Back in 2000, George W. Bush campaigned on this. There was a tax surplus because of Clinton, and he wanted to give the money back to the people. Not a bad idea. But one of the arguments was that it would spur economic growth. I think the checks were around $600 to $800. It was not a lot of money, but it's a chunk of change that you wouldn't be sad to get. Did it help the economy? No. The economy still got into a recession, I believe, in 2001. Now, of course, part of that was because of the attack, but the rest of it was it was heading that direction anyway. Tax incentives like that just never really seemed to work. Do they help? Now, the real question is, would the recession have been worse without them? Did this buy you an extra month of time? I would say yes. In my opinion, I went to school for this kind of stuff. I would say that tax breaks themselves likely stave off recession for about a month, depending on how much money you hand out. But I'd say anything under $5,000 probably would give you a month. It would buy you time, but it would not save you. That's the way it goes. It's just not enough money to really stop the machine. Excuse me. And the real way you spur economic growth is through good tax policy. The Laffer curve actually is a great example of this, and I'll see if I can show you what it looks like here. This is how you spur economic growth. I know this theory is controversial, but it is a good theory here. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, so Investopedia has a good article on it here, and let me show you what it looks like. So as you can see, this is a Laffer curve. It's just a bell curve, pretty much. Tax rate. You have 0% here, 100% here. And then you have the amount of revenue the government can earn. This is just any number, really. But for our sake, the federal government probably earns several $1 trillion. This is the optimal tax rate. Somewhere between 0 and 100. Now, this is not 50%. It looks like a 50%. It is not. This is not how the curve works. But this right here is where you want to be. Now, Trump found this, and nobody's talking about it. Nobody is. I've mentioned it, I think, on this show once or twice before. But the Trump tax cuts, let's see, federal revenue 2018 versus 2019. Let's see if anybody has that information I need here. Okay, and then here we go. Hold on. I know you're really, hyped up for this number here because it's a big number. Federal revenue 2017. Now remember, Trump made a massive tax cut back in the day here. So in 2017, Trump's first year of office, according to the AI here, $3.3 trillion in revenue was reported. That's pretty good. Now, it then became 3.33 trillion. And then became 3.46 trillion, despite significant tax cuts. Which means that it is likely that Trump went from this side of the curve to this side. A lower tax rate with the same amount of money. That is the goal here. Now, he found the middle here. There is an argument to be made that the Democrats could be right here, that a slightly higher tax rate would be the optimal tax rate. That'd be taxes on you, businesses, and investments. It's not a significant increase, which is what the Democrats have been pushing. Although, to be fair to Biden, he wasn't pushing for much either. His numbers weren't that far off from what could be the optimal tax rate. So I have to give Biden credit. Well, whoever set Biden's policy. I don't know if there's a guy out there who actually knows what they're doing, but somebody in the Biden office had the right number, or close to it, I think. I'm not going to argue for more taxes simply to get more revenue for the federal government. And if you're a Democrat, you shouldn't argue for that either. Every dollar you give them is another dollar Trump has. And if you don't like Trump, why are you giving him money? Just saying. Yeah. So, the Laffer curve. Fascinating. In fact, here, I am going to show you how important this is. Here, let me find this here, and you can see this for yourself. Laffer curve. Let's see if they have it here. Let's see. Let's see here.
Hi, Jane.
Okay, so let me mute this here and get the ad passed, and I will show you what I'm talking about because this is truly fascinating. Let's see. if I can find it. All right, hold on here. Let's see if this is working.
Government. Did it work? Anyone? Anyone know the
No,
effects?
it did not.
It did not work on the United
Okay.
Great
Here
Depression.
we go. This is it.
Today, we
right here. This is the part I want you to see, or at least listen to. Okay.
have a similar debate over this. Anyone know what this is,
Now,
class?
Ben
Anyone?
Stein here in Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Anyone?
Is
Anyone seen this
talking
before? The Laffer curve. Anyone know what this says? It says that at this point on the revenue curve, you will get exactly the same amount of revenue as at this point. This is very controversial. Does anyone know what Vice President Bush called this in 1980? Anyone? Something DOO economics. Voodoo economics.
Now, I don't know if I'd call it voodoo economics, but Ben Stein actually is an economist here, so he actually is doing a full lecture. In fact, I believe that's what they told him to do for the scene. Great movie, by the way, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. If you're looking for something amazing that will change your life, not kidding, it is one of the best movies ever made. And if you've seen the original Deadpool movie, the after credit scene is a direct reference to the after credit scene from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It's perfect. There are a few perfect movies in the world. Ferris Bueller's Days Off is one of them. So anyway, he's talking about the Laffer curve, and exactly the same way. It's the same amount of revenue on different sides of the curve, with the theory being that an optimal tax rate exists. And I think that theory does exist. And everyone, they like to argue against it. They have their reasons. I think they're all wrong. And the numbers I just gave kind of prove that despite tax cuts, revenue still went up. Federal revenue still went up. Now, you can make a case that maybe it affected state revenues and things like that. I don't think it did, because state revenues are different. They're taxed at their own separate state taxes. And some states don't even have any. I think Florida doesn't, and I don't know if Texas does. If it does, it's very small. California is one of the highest, obviously. Weird that states with the highest taxes seem to be losing people for some reason. You know, that was a big thing when Bush was president. They were talking about lowering taxes because the rich were going to leave, and the Democrats were like, "Oh, that's never going to happen. That's never going to happen." And well, sure is now. Every state that seems to have high taxes seems to be losing all the rich people, and the rich people they kind of pay for everything. I mean, most tax revenue is paid by rich people. They make up 1%, and I think they pay 80 to 90% of all federal taxes. In fact, most people in the country don't really pay taxes. If you file your taxes at the end of the year, your rebate is likely more than what you paid, to an extent. Not always, but to an extent, you're getting a good chunk of your change back. They're not. Now, they're like, oh, well, they pay less of a percentage. They don't, actually. They pay, by earning money, they pay taxes on a different kind of money than you do. A lot of people say, well, the capital gains tax. The capital gains tax is basically what you earn from investments, to an extent. You sell something, you buy a stock, you sell it, you got a capital gain. Now, that's just money. That is, they did no work for it, which is why people are mad. But that's not the case. They worked to earn that original money that they invested. You don't just start with money unless your parents give you a bunch, which, you know, that'd be nice, but not everyone gets that. I think Donald Trump got $1 million. He turned it into $1 billion. You can't really go wrong with that. Most millionaires today are self-made, first-generation wealth. Very rarely do you find rich people that are second generation and third generation. It's likely they go broke from time to time, and sometimes they come back. But anyway, back to capital gains. It's not payroll. They're not doing a job. They took their money and invested it. If you were to raise capital gains tax, you would affect most Americans. Even though you think that you're not included in that rich people class, you kind of are, especially if you have a 401k. This would affect investments across the board if they were to raise taxes to a high level. Now, Biden's proposal was moderate compared to what Democrats have really been calling for, which is significant increases in capital gains. It's a bad idea. It really is. It would discourage investment. Basically, rich people would pull their money out of the stock market and put it wherever else they could that had a lower tax bracket. Tax break. Or tax rate. Gosh, it's morning. But anyway, if that was to be the case, your 401k would likely drop. If everyone starts selling their stocks, that's usually what causes prices to drop, which means that the 401k you have, which is invested in the market usually, would start dropping. All of a sudden, your retirement is gone. And that would suck. So, I'm kind of going off tangent here, but it really is a bad idea to raise taxes at all, really, when you've already kind of found the optimal tax rate. Where we're at now, it's pretty good. I don't think Trump should lower it. I know he's probably going to try, and I'm not going to stand in the way of that because, hey, I'm all for lower taxes. But if your goal is to fund the federal government, Trump's numbers that they're at now, I wouldn't change them. I know I reported that, 2017, 2018, 2019 tax rates tax revenue went up for the federal government. That was then. It's almost 8 years later. It's not the same. The numbers will be different. You can mess around with it and change taxes from year to year to try and solve the problem and figure it out. But I don't think the American people would enjoy that. Hey, I'm going to do an experiment. I want to raise your taxes and then lower them and raise them again to see where the top of the curve is. Don't worry, we'll give it back. Trust us. Yeah. Every time you vote to raise taxes, they're never giving it back to you. All right. I think I've talked enough. What do you think? Leave a comment in the description in the body below here. I want to know. What is your opinion on taxes? Are they good? Are they bad? Do you want them lower? Do you want them higher? What do you think the government should spend them on? Is Elon Musk really a good guy? Or is he a robot from the future? We'll never really know the answers.